Hello everybody, welcome along. My name is Benjamin Bloom. This is the Benjamin Bloom Football Channel. Please leave your bias at the door and join us to discuss who is the best striker in the Championship. I've compiled the data. The data is a starting point for a conversation. The conversation is subjective, of course. Please just make sure that your biggest definition is not the team you support and whether one of the top scorers plays for the team you support. I think we can go into a bit more depth with that. But with that being said, let's start with the most simple number and the most simple analysis we can do. Who scored the most goals? It is, as we know, Alexander Mitrovic. 22 already in half a season, with Ben Brereton Diaz following on 19, Tom Solanke on 17. Bit of a big gap between those three, and then we have to go down Joel Pirro, 11, Adebayo and Graben of Luton and Forest on 10. Weimann, Grant, Gyökeres on 9. Reese, Patterson, Swift, Godden. Shout out, I guess, to Weimann, Patterson, Swift, really. They're not even strikers. So if it's that simple to you, who scored the most goals, then we can stop there and you'll tell me that Mitrovic is the best striker in the Championship. But are all goals equal? Is a goal scored when playing for Barnsley equal to a goal scored when playing for Fulham or Bournemouth? Is a total by a player who's played this many minutes better than a total of a player that's less who's played this many minutes? So I think we can go into more detail. The most simplistic thing we can do is then divide the amount of goals scored by the amount of minutes played. We can see if we can weed out, well, not necessarily weed out, but certainly raise up someone who's not really been on the pitch that long. And that someone would probably be Matt Godden if you look at that list. Mitrovic is still at the top, though. He scores every 92 minutes in the Championship. Very impressive. Nearly a goal a game. And remember, the stats bods don't add the stoppage time on. They class a game as 90 minutes. So not quite a goal per game by those standards. Brereton Diaz is in second. Look, Godden's up there ahead of Solanke. Pirro, Graben, Adebayo, Gyökeres, all familiar names. Jerry Yates appearing there on the list for Blackpool, and Carlin Grant at the bottom. Yates in particular is an interesting one. Started the season slowly, didn't he, after scoring lots of goals for Blackpool in League One. So I guess Matt Godden is the big winner there, jumping up. But still, Mitrovic is the guy. Now, would it be fair to compare somebody that has absolutely loads of shots and scores loads of goals with somebody that doesn't have that many shots but still scores? So we've got the data. We can divide the number of shots by the number of goals, etc. And we come out with this in terms of how many shots it takes for each player to score a goal. And that works out very, very well for Lewis Graben, who's top of the pile. First things first, let's look for Mitrovic. He's there in 8th. Brereton Diaz in 4th. Notice Dominic Solanke is not there. He's not in the top 10 for shots per goals yet. He scored a hell of a lot of goals for Bournemouth. So Graben's up there. Jerry Yates again showing up well. Graben 3.3 shots. Yates 3.43. There's Jamie Patterson as well with 3.5. Adebayo in there. Godden as well. Cornick makes an appearance for Luton. Weimann. Emil Reese as well for Preston. You can see the gold standard really is that top 5 are scoring a goal with under 4 shots. So every 4 shots they have, basically they score a goal. Very, very interesting and well played. Lewis Graben, he's a wily old fox. He's been around and he's got the most efficient shots to goals ratio. But you will know we can go into more detail than that because is a shot from 30 yards equal to a shot from 6 yards with an open goal? We know it's not, and we've got a lovely stat called XG to work that out. Lots of people get very emotional about XG. Less so now. I think people are less violently opposed to a mere probability stat. But if you're not in the loop with this, all XG does is the data people have mined thousands and tens of thousands of shots to work out a probability. Think of it think of it like your car insurance. They don't analyse the actual driver, but they say if you are a 23-year-old male living in this area, there's a high probability you'll have an accident as opposed to a 75-year-old female who doesn't drive a car. Simple probability stats, but what it does is it gives us the chance quality. So what I've done is I've divided the XG for the season by the total of goals. Now what that gives us is an XG per goal. And we can rank this really simplistically because obviously an XG of 1 is a guaranteed goal. There's no such thing as a guaranteed goal in football because anything can happen. Someone can fall over on the goal line. The highest we get is sort of 0.77, which is a penalty. What we can say is that for every XG of 1 accrued, if you're underneath that total and you're outperforming your XG, that's above par, above probability for the chance created. If you're above 1, you're kind of performing under the probability. So we say overperformance and an underperformance of the XG. Shall we have a look, if my explanation is long-winded enough? And look at that, Jamie Patterson, an incredible first half of the season by him. So Jamie Patterson, 0.46 XG per goal. So basically, if 1 is the standard and 1 is par and sensible performance, Jamie Patterson is better than double in terms of 0.5 would be double overperformance of your XG. He's at a 0.46. What's very interesting for Swansea fans is they seem to, on the basis of XG only, in isolation of course, have the best 2 finishers in the division because Joel Pirro is there at 0.6. So in terms of chance quality, well, you tell me, Swansea fans, is that a good thing or a bad thing? When you look at the league position, you got 2 very... Look, it's always a good thing to have 2 very high-performing finishers, but generally speaking, in terms of data analytics, people prefer lots and lots rather than a couple performing really well. Lots of chances created, lots of chances scored amongst lots of players. But tip of the cap to those 2 Swans players. John Swift, 0.65, and Phil Billing, 0.66. That's interesting because they are both attacking midfielders. So what that would suggest is they have a lower quality of chance. They're shooting from outside the box, but they're good at it, especially Swift as well, and Billing arriving on to stuff. Matt Godden's in there again. He's came up a few times. Weimann, Cornick. There is Mitrovic, 0.78. Outperforming his XG handsomely. So is Yates. So is Reese. This feels like I've got something against Dominic Solanke. I haven't, but I just wanted to raise, of the players that I analysed, every player who scored over 7 goals, Dom Solanke was the only one to underperform his XG. I think it was like infinitesimal. It was like 17 goals or something from 17.1 XG. But it's worth saying that he's the only one on that list who actually underperformed par based on the probability of the chances created. Interesting, because I've seen him hit some magnificent finishes this season. Maybe a bit inconsistent, who knows, even though the goals are flying in. Let's look at team contribution now. And what I've done is divided the amount of goals the team scored by the amount of goals the players on our list have scored to work out a team contribution. Now, we can have a long debate as to whether it's a good thing if a team has one player disproportionately responsible for lots of their goals. Depends what your analysis of disproportionate is, what that number is. And look, I never have a problem with a team having a star player and that star player heavily contributing. Look at Maradona and won the World Cup by himself, for God's sake. Look at Arsenal and Thierry Henry, or Manchester United and Cantona. It is what it is. You've got to have a star player. So, look, whether you think it's a good thing or a bad thing, I think it's a good thing. And reverse it, look at it from the player's point of view. It can only be a good thing that they're so heavily responsible for their team's goals. And you can see Ben Brereton Diaz up the top there, 46.34% of Blackburn's goals. And there he is, Dom Solanke in second, Mitrovic third. So it's our big 3 with their big totals, all performing well. Look, in terms of people being overly reliant, if those numbers were over 50% or 60% or something, then perhaps you might have an argument. But Pirro in there, Weimann, Reese, Adebayo, Grabban, Gyökeres, Patterson. These are all very familiar names if we've been paying attention during the video. Let's just do one more thing. I don't think it's fair on, say, let me just pick out some names here. Derby and Colin Kazim Richards, or Barnsley and Corley Woodrow, Peterborough and Dembele or Johnson Clark Harris. They shouldn't be judged by the same standard as Mitrovic, Brereton, Diaz and Solanke, should they? Because their teams are way worse. Therefore, they don't get that many shots. They don't get that much possession. They don't score that many goals. So what I've done is a difficulty adjustment, and I've done it on the basis every third position in the league and done a bit of a multiplication. So my thought and my thesis is that it's twice as difficult for a striker playing in a bottom three team to score a goal than it is for a striker playing in a top three team. And then I've ratcheted it down. Think of it what you will. If we've got any data people who think that's a good idea or a bad idea, they can comment. Bit of fun. I've then adjusted it per minute as well. So essentially what we've got is a goals total, and I've given a little bit of a bonus to players who are lower down the league, essentially because it's more difficult to score for a worse team, isn't it? Would stand to reason, wouldn't it? Anyway, let me know what you think of that. And then I've divided it again to get a minutes per goal figure. And Joel Pirro comes out at the top of that. So when we gave him a bit of a boost for the fact he plays for the 16th best team in the league, as opposed to Mitrovic, who plays for the second best team in the league, he came out in terms of a goal every 89 minutes, once adjusted for difficulty. Mitrovic, he's still up there. He's still so prolific, even though I didn't give him any kind of bonus because he's a top three player. Godden, Adebayo, Brereton, Diaz in there. Grabban, Yates, Solanke, Cornick and Swift. All familiar names. So there you go. That is a fairly detailed look and a lot of numbers about Championship strikers and performers. Now, as ever, the data is the data. You can choose to interpret the data however you see fit. That's up to you. As Dave Chappelle said recently in that special, I'm responsible for what I say, not how you interpret it. And again, if you want to do it really simplistically and the discussion begins and ends with which team you support and you just want to say that's the best striker in the league, fine, whatever. My previous point stands. If you want to do it just based purely on the number of goals, fine. Again, my previous point stands. But let me just give you the tail of the tape. So, most goals was Mitrovic. Minutes per goal was Mitrovic. Shots per goal, Lewis Grabban was the best. XG per goal, Jamie Patterson, not even a striker really, was the best. The best team contribution, the most important player to his team in terms of goals, Ben Brereton Diaz. And my convoluted difficulty adjustment made Joel Pirro the top striker in the Championship, or top goal-scoring player in the Championship. So look, it's hard to look past Mitrovic in the most simple stats in terms of goals and goals per minute. But when you do start looking at number of shots, chance quality, etc., there are a lot of other good performers. And look, we don't want to make this a bun fight in the comments where everyone wants their guy to win or whatever. Maybe what this video should serve to do is, really wave a flag at really good contributors like Cornick and Adebayo for Luton maybe, or Pirro and Patterson, or maybe Emil Reese or Jerry Yates we talked about, Lewis Grabban's finishing, etc. So, yeah, if we cast aside the team we support and that single factor analysis of just, well, how many goals, there's a lot of good work being done by a lot of players in the Championship. And then, that's just the data. There's no eye test in that. Who carries the ball best? Who are defenders most scared against? Does Mitrovic face a double mark and a low block every game? We haven't even mentioned that sort of thing in terms of how teams play. So this is purely just the data and a conversation starter. I assume a lot of people will have Mitrovic as the best guy. That makes a lot of sense to me. Can we please avoid the reductive, what about the Premier League? We're talking about the Championship, okay? We're having a conversation about who makes the best cup of tea. Throwing in something about a cup of coffee is irrelevant. We can do a different video on Premier League goal scoring analysis. We're talking about the Championship, and Mitro bosses it in the Championship, doesn't it? Interested to hear about the Swansea players. Interested to hear about Solanke, because I like him very much. The goals is very good. Goals per minute is very good. Contribution to team, etc. Low on the XG and the conversion type business there as well. So he is an interesting one too. And yeah, give a shout out to Adebayo and Cornick and Yates and Reeves and Grabban and all these other players who aren't in the big three at the top there. Let me know your thoughts. Again, it's the data for the first half of the season. It's a conversation starter, and you can interpret the data and the whole vision of everything however you like. But go on, give me your answer in the chat. Who is the best striker in the Championship? Thank you everybody for watching. And it's a lovely big over and out from me.